All right.
Make sure my phone's
What
muted.
is this? Wes, are you still screen sharing?
No, I'm not.
No.
It should have gone away.
Oh, there it goes. All right. Yeah, dude, my Skype is acting up lately.
I guess it.
Hold on, let me get his logo on here. I think I got yours on.
Talk about the movie.
I know, buddy. I'm sorry.
I came up with a pretty good fan theory.
I've heard so much stuff over the last 3 days.
Well, it's fun
Fan-
working
fan-
with like just as big a geek as I am, because randomly Bob turned around and was like, "Ooh!" I'm like,
I could picture him doing that.
and he
Which
like,
fan theory?
"Oh, we'll talk about it."
Ooh.
He spouted that off. I'm like, but, and I came up with mine. He's like, "Well, that's better." Yeah.
All right. So I got Broken Nerd logo on here, so we're good to go.
All right. Hello, Internet. You're licking.
Licking?
You're licking.
Man.
People need to quit licking stuff.
You are finger licking good.
Oh,
99 episodes in.
I did this all damn for my class today, too.
That's part of
All
our
right.
You're
charm.
licking your class?
Damn it, Josh.
It was a science experiment in English.
You have to get a waiver sign for that.
There's already been teachers fired for that this year. All right. Wait, damn it, I'm recording. I'll have to cut that. All right. Hello, Internet. You're listening to the Making Geeks podcast, the podcast for makers, dads, and geeks. And this is episode 99. This week, oh, I know, 99. Huge, right on the edge right there.
I feel like I'm standing in one of the skyscrapers where you lean against the glass that's tilted out and you can just see over the edge.
So let me introduce everybody to the guys that we have with us today, starting with Mr. Josh Price,
Hello, everybody.
Mr. Mark O'Keefe,
What's going on?
Mr. Wes Swain,
Excelsior.
and returning for this special episode, we have Darrel from the Broken Nerd YouTube channel. Welcome back, Darrel.
Hey, what's up, buddy?
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We have been looking forward to this for weeks, and it's finally here.
Yeah, not only because of the movie, but Darrel, man, you have been everywhere.
We have to talk about this first.
You've been knighted in the world of geekdom. Like, you gotta tell us what happened. So Adam Savage called you up out of the blue and was like, "Hey, you should come out and hang out for a little bit." That's how stuff happens.
No, it was kind of a process. It actually started with one Twitter post, and from there, I was contacted by an individual that works at Tested, and from there, Adam and I connected, and actually, when I was out to San Francisco in January, I happened to call them. I was actually out there for something else, and I spoke with the individual that works for Tested, and I told them I was going to be out there. So she said, just stop by. So I stopped by, and then her, Norm, and I sat down, and they were kind of trying to figure out a project for Adam and I to work on, and then they landed on doing the incognito walk at Silicon Valley, and then from there, it was kind of like a month of planning. I sent Adam the idea of doing the Knights of Ren, and so we agreed that I would do like the 3D printed parts, and then he would do the like the soft fabrication parts. And I flew out there for a week and got to hang out at his shop for a week, and we did the incognito walk, and that was my first Comic-Con and my first cosplay, and it was quite the experience. I learned a lot. Adam is super cool. I think all the energy that you see on camera, I mean, it's there. Camera, very he loves sharing stories, and I think I'm talking about it, and it's still like surreal to me that this even happened. So I'm just like, it hasn't
Just
even
a
hit
dream
me
I had one night.
yet. Yeah, pretty much.
Crazy.
But it was fun. It was fun. So I think it hasn't been finalized yet, but I believe that we're got some other projects in the future to be working on. So
Sweet.
Nice.
And you get second date with Adam Savage. That's pretty spectacular.
That is cool.
I think you got to buy him dinner on this one.
Well, that's great,
Yeah,
man. That's
Yeah.
so good to see your awesome work being showcased in that venue.
thank you.
Yeah, so that circle of connection gets a little bit smaller now. So we're what, 2 degrees away from Adam Savage?
That's right.
Yeah.
When he inevitably gets kidnapped and thrown in the back of one of our minivans, and
I think Mark made a similar joke in social like a week ago.
Twice so far. My buddy asked me, he's like, "Can you give me Adam Savage's autograph?" I was like, "Dude, if I see him, I'm kidnapping him and bringing him home."
That's a great way to get him on the show.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I can't
FBI
imagine that's the
listeners.
worst thing
That's right.
that's ever been said.
Hello, NSA.
well, I mean, okay, that raises a good point. So Darrel, when you guys went to Silicon Valley Comic Con, like, how is it going there with Adam? Like, you saw that you guys were in like your own room, your own like, looked like a pretty big space, like, because he can't just walk around. I mean, that's his whole thing with the incognito stuff. Like,
So
how
we
did you
got
even
there.
show up?
So we got there, and by the time, because I rode with some of the crew, my wife and I, and by the time we got there, he was already there, and they were trying to get into the room. So we got there a little bit before they actually opened the doors, and he was like whisked back and forth through like the back hallways. So he was never on the main floor at any time, like outside of when we did the incognito walk. So they always had him going out the back door of the room that we were in to go to like the panel talk, and then to come back into the room where he did the podcast. And then they had a green room set up for celebrities that were there. So I think he spent, and if he wasn't in the room with us, he was in that green room with the other celebrities, I believe. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm assuming that's where he was at.
Did you go sneak in there?
I did not. I didn't even know where it was at.
Go get some snacks?
They probably would have kicked me out with the quick.
These pretzels are stale.
Well, not too much
Don't you
longer.
know
I think
who
you're
I
gonna be
am?
right there with him.
Yeah, I don't know, but I mean, it was interesting. I got to see, being that this was my first Comic-Con, I have a friend that always goes, and I was kind of telling him, and he was like, "Dude, you had like it made, like you had the life." He said that when I go, I have to wear my costume all day, and I don't have a place to like sit down and relax. And so I was like, so now I don't know what to expect, because I do plan on going to New York Comic Con, but I'm not gonna do a cosplay. I'm just gonna go and kind of enjoy.
I will say, take a day off to try and get those tickets.
Really?
I stopped going because I couldn't take the day to maybe get a ticket.
Wow.
It's grown. I don't know if it's still the case, but I can't imagine it's not. They said it grew past San Diego Comic-Con.
Wow.
And it's like Javits, they need a bigger venue, because it's the most insane thing I've ever seen on a Saturday.
Really?
Like we used to go on Thursdays and Fridays because there wasn't as many people. We could take the day off. I mean, it was still crazy packed, but it wasn't insane. And then one year I went on a Saturday, and it was utterly bat crazy.
So here's the thing. I when I was at Silicon, they were like, "This is chill compared to San Diego and New
been to
York."
San
So I'm just
Diego.
like, if this is chill, then I couldn't even imagine.
But see, you have like celebrity status now, so you should be able to go up there and go like, "Don't you know who I am?
Boom.
Like you're
Well, I mean,
literally
watch this
when you're,
video."
when
That's a
you're
decent
walking
point,
through
though.
the hallways, you are literally like this in
Wow.
Javits. And if you see something cool, you kind of got to wait 15 minutes until the people that are there start clearing away, so you can wedge in and look at stuff. And I mean, it is. I think they need to make a building specifically for Comic-Con, because it's just that many people are there.
Wow.
And this is not going to get better anytime soon, because the world of geek just keeps growing.
Yep.
And that's why we're talking about this topic today.
It's
So part of
okay to be a
transition.
geek now.
Yes.
We're taking things over.
And we're going to talk about the movie that took over the universe. So, this is a podcast riddled with spoilers.
Turn back now.
If you haven't seen this movie, then
Turn it off.
I heard
Which
a
movie is
statistic.
that? Have we even said it out loud?
Oh, we're talking about Avengers: Infinity War. That was
Who's colon?
Infinity War. Yeah. So I heard that there were 250 million Americans have seen this movie in the opening week, which is 10% of the population.
I think it's probably less than that because most of those people probably saw it 3 or 4 times.
As the United States. Right. Well, yeah, it could be. But I mean, you think about it, how many people are open geeks and culture right now? So that's like, that's all the people. So if you haven't seen this movie and you listen to this podcast, like, I know a couple of people who haven't, and I'm sorry for their circumstances, but man, you guys got to go watch this movie.
Yeah.
So like we do every time. Did you like it? Did you, was it okay? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Give me, in 5 words or less, your reaction to this movie.
I'm between like and love. Just
Interesting.
because I know this isn't the end of it.
Okay. Wes?
I loved it. It was awesome. I had a hard time coming up with a list of things I didn't like. Like, you could nitpick it here and there to find little inconsistencies and everything, but they were far more minor than other Marvel movies that tried to be as big and as epic. And I think this one outdid that epicness considering what they had to do. It's quite impressed.
Darrel? What about you?
I loved it. I think I think Marvel did a good job in keeping some of the things on the wraps. With this day and age of leaks and spoilers, I think their marketing team did an epic job in keeping some things on the wraps that were in the movie.
Sean?
I have the same problem with this movie that I had with The Last Jedi, in that I'm having to come up with an opinion about an unfinished story. But since that's the name of the game, what we're doing, I liked it. I liked it for what it was.
I freaking love this movie. It is by far my favorite of the MCU movies now. Like,
So I'm gonna give a question that I saw on the internet. Do you think Star-Lord is the main villain of this movie?
I don't think villain's the right term. I think typically we call that like a MacGuffin or something.
No, because I don't. Okay, I get what you're getting at. Like, he was the reason that, and I'll find fault in that whole scene. But I think you're alluding to, like, they were about to get the glove off.
Yes, they were about to
when
end it
Mantis
all.
had him, and then he got kind of in the way and interrupted the plan that was allegedly his plan to begin with. That was.
But it happened the way it's supposed to happen. Is kind of the way we're supposed to look at it.
Right.
If you take that stance, then Poe Dameron is the biggest villain in The Last Jedi.
Okay.
For that same reason.
I will have issues arguing against that one.
That's a win.
So what you guys are actually saying though is that the villain is ego itself. Somebody's ego is the thing that's interrupting.
The reason why I kind of agree with that, not actually, but I can see the point, is not 20 minutes before that scene he was stopping Drax from doing the same thing, and that wasn't his girlfriend, that was his wife and his child. So Drax had more of a reason to go punch him in the face than Star-Lord did.
True. Okay, well let's get
Darrel?
back to hold on.
Darrel's about to say something.
Yeah.
But can we really blame Star-Lord, or can we blame Nebula? Because had she not confirmed his suspicion, he would have held off for a little longer. Because I saw the movie 3 times, and it wasn't until the 3rd time I said, if she would have kept her mouth quiet for a little bit longer.
She's fine. She's fine. Don't worry about it. She's fine.
Well, if he
It's
would've
only
pulled
a
the
flesh
trigger-
wound.
I think if he would have pulled the trigger when he was supposed to pull the trigger, I mean, you could argue that, yeah, the reality stone would have changed it. But I think there's an underlying theme in this movie that wasn't, well, actually, it's pretty overt. Like, the Avengers don't trade lives. That was Captain America's big line. We don't do that. That's what separates us from Thanos. Thanos wants balance and peace and hooray in the universe at the expense of half of the entire population of the universe. And that's terrible, right? The needs of the few should not outweigh the needs of the many.
I saw a
Or,
meme
I
that
said that
pretty
wrong.
much summed it up perfectly. They said you have 6 children and you have 3 chairs. What do? Tony Stark, build 3 chairs. Thanos, kill 3 kids.
That's actually a pretty good illustrative point.
I found that like his entire. I liked Thanos. Don't get me wrong. I read Infinity War when it came out. He's always been one of my favorite villains because there's thought behind the evil he's doing. It's not just I'm a bad guy because rah.
He believes in his quest.
That being said, you literally can rewrite existence. If the universe is finite, okay, fine. If its resources are finite, no, they're not. You can make more just by doing that.
Yeah, but is that like, are you talking about the reality stone can do that? Because that's the perception.
If he can blink half of existence out, he can also
Blink
Blink
double
more than
everything
half
else they eat in. Yeah.
make
Conceivably.
the planets bigger, make the food more, you don't have to go quite so genocidey.
Okay.
But for that
Yeah,
reason,
well, I mean, because he's a bad guy.
was in the comics his main motivation was different, and then in this one though, wasn't it? Wasn't he?
Yes.
Then using that, which was he was trying to impress Death, which he was
Mr.
infatuated
Death, yes.
with, right? So then killing half the population would be a good way to say, hey, look at me, hey Death, check this out. But now that whole line of thinking is less valid, I think, now, because that wasn't his underlying motivation, right? So it's harder to justify it, like you're saying, Josh. Like he doesn't want main goal wasn't to do that. So
Yeah. He also seemed more of a valid, like, flawed, I don't want to say hero, but like a flawed individual rather than a villain, because he's looking at an issue of the universe and saying, okay, instead of these people dying tragically, they'll just fade away, and that's more merciful, and then the people who survive can live better lives. Whereas his 4 henchmen were just bad guys. They were just bad to be bad.
I read that the best way to describe this movie was the hero's journey of Thanos, which, if you look at it from that perspective, it makes a lot of sense because he believes he's righteous and doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
And that's the best
honestly,
villain, is someone that has justification.
Someone who believes they're being the good guy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thanos was my favorite character in this whole movie. I mean, I wasn't on board with his quest. I didn't support what he was doing. I mean, you kind of had to have a little.
There's a couple
it's not
liberties.
sympathy, but like you get, like Wes, you're talking about. He has a goal. It's somewhat rational, in a terrible way. Like, but his character arc, the way that he reacts to people, his interaction with Tony Stark, like once he's like, all that for a little bit of blood, and he's like, the people that are left, he's like, I hope they remember you. I'm like, that was freaking epic, the way that he's talking to people.
Yeah.
Like the emotional connection he had with Gamora, even though he had to throw her off, the ledge. Like, I loved his character. He was never out of control. There were a couple times where he got like really gritty and angry, but he was in all of the doom and all of the chaos and all the craziness that was that movie. I think he was the most collected and put together character, and he's still like in a internal like turmoil and transition, constantly moving and constantly having to reinvent what he's doing. He was cool. He was cool about it, man. It was my favorite character in the whole movie. So, characters. Well, hold on. Let's talk big picture stuff because we get really deep really quick. So, right from the beginning, it takes over where Ragnarok left off, right?
Immediately, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought was awesome.
Yeah, I like that.
That like distress call that you hear while the credits are rolling, like that got me. That got me from my like search and rescue days. I was like,
that
"Whoa,
was
what's
Kenneth
happening?"
Branagh.
Okay. So that started the whole theme of like we don't trade lives, right? Because Loki could have just like, no man, kill the guy, kill Thor. You don't kill Thor.
Yeah,
But he's like, no, stop, and then he had to give him the Tesseract. So is Loki dead?
Yes.
Yep.
I want to say no.
He's more dead than the people that just whisked away, I think.
Because that was harsh. He killed, man, he choked him out. That was crazy.
I want to see. Here's the thing, though. Like, Loki knows who he's going up against. You know? And Loki's not the one to sacrifice himself. He never will be. But I do believe I think they can bring him back by saying he pulled the double blind.
I hope they don't bring him back. But at the same time, one of the biggest complaints that I heard, and this isn't necessarily my complaint, but I can see where it's somewhat valid, is you had Loki that was one of the more interesting villains initially in the universe that didn't really seem to have that same importance, meeting his end. And I think it would have been more interesting. Well, it's not even my comment, but it seemed almost non-important the way that he was just killed off, and then it's on to the next thing. I don't think it was given time to set in, or like the real gravity of that death.
Yeah.
I don't think had the impact that it probably should have had.
It was the same that they treated Thor's buddies in Ragnarok. Like, they built this relationship up for over 3 movies, or 2.5 movies, or whatever, of his friends.
Go away.
And they're dead. Forget about them.
There's some speculation that some of them escaped.
Yeah, well, half
Well,
escaped.
I know.
They said that.
Who did?
Yeah.
It's mentioned. I mean, he kills half of every population, right? So you got at least the dude.
No, I mean on the actual ship in the beginning of the movie, it was said that some of them already escaped.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my
escaped.
question. Is like everybody on the ship is dead. That was all of Asgard.
Like
so how did half of Asgard?
Valkyrie and Korg and a bunch of others. They said.
True.
Well, they didn't mention them as escaping, but you didn't see them laying down, so you assume they left.
Yeah.
I want Loki's probably dead, but I want him to live because there's a comic called Loki, Agent of Asgard, where he turns into like their Black Ops guy, like their spy, and it was really interesting in the beginning. So I would love to see a movie of that, but I don't think it'll happen. And 2, can we please, as a movie making people, stop killing Idris Elba? He's usually my favorite character in every movie he's in, and he ends up dead every time.
So, Darrel, who's your favorite character?
By far in this movie, Thor. My biggest issue with the Thor movies was that they never played up on his strength. And I think in this movie, the Russo brothers did a fantastic job with showing how powerful Thor can be. And they kind of, I like how they explored his arc, and they really highlighted how much he lost. It wasn't until he was sitting down having that conversation with Rocket that I realized like how much he's been through from his first movie to this point, and how much he has lost. So I think the Russo brothers did it, and then that epic moment when he landed in Wakanda, that was just like, I've been to the movie 3 times, and every time I've been there, even the last time I went, there was only like 15 people in the movie, and everybody in the theater was clapping when that part came on. So yeah, I think by far Thor.
Actually, Joe, you brought up something interesting. I'm curious what you think about it since you've seen it a couple times now. So the scene you're talking about where Thor's talking to Rocket, where he's talking about everything he's lost, I interpreted that in a weird way, almost seeming like, okay, well, what does he have left to fight for? His dad's gone, his brother's gone, almost all of his people are gone. What's left? Why still fight? And I don't know if I missed something in terms of his motivation.
Well, he mentioned revenge. Because Rocket was like, revenge isn't really the greatest thing to fight with. And he's like, no, it's perfect. It makes you clear, and anger and revenge make you good. But that one line when he was sitting there, he's like, when Rocket says, well, what if you lose? He said, what, I've lost everything. What more can they take from me? That broke my heart. I was like, oh, man, come here. I'll give you a hug.
The revenge thing almost didn't. The revenge thing almost didn't seem like a powerful enough motivator with the way he was delivering the lines. But I've only seen it the one time, so maybe I'm missing something in the.
He was
and the
also on the
intention.
verge of tears right then. So
Mhm.
Well, I think in the beginning on the ship when Thanos killed Loki. Oh no, it wasn't when he killed Loki. When he killed Idris Elba, he was like, "I'm gonna kill you."
yeah, he's
Mm.
like,
He's
you'll,
like, for
you'll
that.
die for.
Hmm.
And then he
Right.
said it when he was shoving
That's true.
Oh,
the
that was
actress'
so.
chest. He's like, "I told you,
God, that was so.
I was gonna kill
Should
you."
have gone for the head.
I'll say this when Iron Man first came out, I was my characters were Batman, Spider-Man 2099, and the X-Men. Those were the ones I cared about. And then like Iron Man was cool, but I never read the comics. The MCU has taken all the like Thor in the comics back then was a little weird. The real long flowing hair, little odd. But they took all these characters and made them some of the awesomest depictions of what they could be. And yeah, Darrel, what you said, Thor is probably my favorite character because it was everything he was in that movie was like just this epic thing.
I agree. I think they played on that whole thing, going back to that scene with Rocket. Like, if you lose everything, doesn't that make you more dangerous and more determined? So right now, he doesn't have anything to that will hold him back from going all the way out.
He's more vicious.
So at this point, he's just like, yeah. So and you've seen it. I mean, for Pete's sake, he took a blast from a dying star to his back. Yeah. Like,
Yeah, it's true.
You know, that wasn't epic enough. Like, I mean,
that was incredible.
and lived at that.
I wasn't a huge fan of like when I first heard like the whole hammer thing with Thor. I was like, oh, the hammer's kind of dumb. But then when that axe got made, I was like, all right, that's one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Especially Groot being the handle. I mean, it's like, oh, so brilliant.
Well, I like how this movie, like you talk about that part in Wakanda when he shows up and just starts crushing it, that you forget. And Loki kind of touched on it in the beginning. They're like, he's a god in the story.
Mm-hmm.
And Thanos is trying to become one. And so he's already up against a stronger power. And so when Thor shows up and like slams the hammer in, and you're like, oh yeah, like that is your rightful place. You've just been in a freaking trough of crap these last couple movies, and it's good to finally, get your place back. And that was a really awesome culminating moment for him.
It seems like every Avengers movie has had that holy crap moment. So the first Avengers movie is when Banner turns into the Hulk for the first time.
And punches the...
Yeah. And I stood up in my seat and went like this, and I almost never react emotionally in a movie, but that one I did. And I felt the same way when Thor came down and the battle in Wakanda. And Age of Ultron, I'm not really sure if it had that moment as much.
Okay, so how did you like the cast of characters as you knew them? They all split up and became their own little mini factions. How do you think it worked?
It's the only way they could have done it. Yeah, I think that's the only way they could have really done it. It would have just been too many huge actors fighting for screen presence, whether they want it, intentionally or not. It would have felt like a constant tug of war of attention.
Yes.
And like quips and one-liners. That was kind of the problem for like Ultron, I think, is that everybody have their little quip, and it just got too much. Like they're trying to be too funny all the time. And this one I thought had
it would have turned into Justice League.
Yeah, this one had like great balance. It went back to the balanced humor, because I thought personally Ragnarok and Guardians 2, they were great movies, but I think the humor, they didn't let anything sit, there was no like emotional resonance, because they like as soon as something really important happened, here comes Drax with a quip. That's all he did in Guardians 2, was just he was the punchline machine, and it was kind of a waste, I thought, and I thought they could have done a lot more. And this one, it felt more like the original movies, where they have a couple moments of levity, but they let the real emotional kind of heavy-hitting moments sink in and actually have an impact. But did I answer your question? I don't think I did.
Yeah, so, kind of going, like, what were your favorite moments from your favorite little cluster of heroes?
All right. I love all the Spider-Man stuff, where he's almost like the fanboy getting inserted into this world. He's almost like if one of us got thrown into the mix, how we would react to all the stuff going on. Yeah, and I really enjoyed that. looking at all this from his kind of point of view, it felt like more like I was there, kind of more engaged in a way. And I liked the way they introduced characters that I'd never met before, but they didn't like spend a ton of time like in exposition, like explaining all these characters' origins. Because there's people that have seen this movie that never saw Guardians. You know, maybe they only turn out for the Avengers ones. They don't really go for all the ancillary movies. So they did a good job of like explaining just enough of all the characters, so you kind of got a feel like when they first got introduced to Thor. Oh, here's Drax. He's a kind of straight shooter. You know what I mean? He doesn't joke around a lot, and you see all the different reactions to this one moment, and you kind of get a feel of how everybody is pretty quickly. And I thought they did an awesome job having interesting mixes of characters that normally wouldn't be paired up with each other. So and Doctor Strange and Tony were awesome together.
Did you realize, I think an awesome part of this movie is they did all of that with only one flashback scene. And that was when Gamora was a little girl. Like, you think of the complexity of this movie and all of the working pieces and the backstories that everybody has. And my wife asked me, she's like, can I go see this without seeing all the other movies? I was like, these movies are awesome because someone can say a single sentence and be the perfect synapses or be the perfect like tie-in to all of the other synopses of all the other stuff and keep the story moving. It doesn't need to be like, oh, did you know that Peter Parker's uncle died? Let's tell you all about the movie. The first third, I really liked how you got where everybody was in the world without having to have all those additional retellings and rehashings of everybody's story.
Yep.
I also like how you saw some characters kind of like evolve a little more. Like Doctor Strange in the first movie was really this kind of more proper type of hoity-toity, like snot, like the high-end doctor, and he was still that through the movie, but he kind of mellowed a little bit by the end. And in this movie, he's calling Tony Stark a douchebag. So,
Michael, what was your favorite moment in your favorite cluster?
I don't know. I liked the Captain America scenes, honestly. I mean, Thor was already taken. That was epic, so I'm not going to say it again. But just, I think they did him really, really well. And if I had to put money on the fact that he wasn't walking out of this movie alive, I would have lost. I was almost positive he was going to die in this movie.
Either him or Iron Man, I definitely would have lost money.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Yeah. And then by the end of the movie, I thought about it, and I was like, no, the real deaths won't come until the end of 4 when all the contracts are up.
Mm-hmm.
But I liked the fight scene with Proxima Midnight and Glaive when Vision was down. I thought that was really cool because it kind of, these bad guys are coming in like, yeah, we're just going to go fight some humans. This will be easy. And then all of a sudden they're getting their butts handed to them. So that was cool.
Did you realize that Scarlett Johansson's character was the only one that actually inflicted, in the beginning, before the big Wakanda fight, like actually inflicted like physical harm on any one of those guys?
Yeah.
The person who has
no powers.
I would say arguably like the least powers did the most damage. Good for her. Shannon, what about you?
Don't play with knives, kids.
I think my favorite kind of pairing it was already said with like Thor and Rocket, but the time that they spent there in the Forge with Peter Dinklage, which I loved that reveal.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really cool. And for me, I'm not a comic book person. I've established that before on the show, and I don't know a lot of the backstories of any of this. But this glimpse into this bigger world, even bigger than what we thought, where these weapons that seem, I never thought before how Thor's hammer was made. I just thought, well, it's a magical item. It's probably like always been. A lot of these things don't really get proper backstories, at least to my knowledge. But then knowing that this thing was actually forged from a dying star, and then all the little not really Easter eggs, but all the little small details in that scene that some people may not have picked up. Some people might have. You see like another replica or the cast for the gauntlet that was in that scene. So there, I just thought that scene gave a lot, and kind of like this glimpse into, this bigger world, and knowing that there's more. We don't know everything yet, or at least somebody like me that doesn't know the background of the comics. There's still a lot of surprises to come, and I really really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Darrel, what about you, Ben?
I think everybody stole mine. So.
You go.
There's only like 3 or 4 to go around, so
Yeah. I really enjoyed the pair up of Captain America, Falcon, and Black Widow. I really enjoyed the scene when they were fighting Proxima Midnight in Corvus Glaive. I really enjoyed the back and forth between Tony and Doctor Strange. Yeah, and I think the part I enjoyed the most was how Thor interacted with Peter when they first met. That was very entertaining. The little banter that they had back and forth.
Goodbye, morons.
and to me, Drax he's usually funny throughout. He's usually funny throughout the Guardians, but I think he had the funniest scene in the movie. When he supposedly thought he was invisible.
Oh.
So yeah, but I think out of all the pair ups, I really enjoyed the scene with and for me, I would have liked to see more of Cap throughout the movie and kind of like what he's been going through mentally and because when we left him off in Civil War, up until this point, we didn't really know what he's been through, what he's been going through, and you can tell just by his physical appearance and then look in his face that he's a different Captain America from what we're used to. He looked more determined in this movie.
I liked that one line he had towards the beginning when General Ross looks at him and goes, you've got some set of stones, and they go through the conversation, and he basically tells me, he's like, look, I'm going to fight for what's right. I'm going to fight them, and if you get in my way, I'll fight you too. It's basically saying, like, I'm doing what I think is right from here on out because you have agendas and they have agendas, and I'm going to save who needs to be saved. And I mean,
he straight up
that was cool.
He straight up told him that he wasn't asking for forgiveness. Like,
yeah,
I'm here and I'm here to do my job.
I think that reiterates that conviction he had in Civil War, and that's awesome that they kept that going. Mm-hmm. You see that the star was ripped off too. The star was ripped off his uniform.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of telling things in that conversation with Ross, and I think one of the good predictors of what characters may not be around later on is looking at their story arc. And there's quite a few of those story arcs that are just about at an end, and there may not be a reason for those stories to continue after the 4th Avengers movie. I think that's kind of our biggest clue to look at who may not be around later on. And I think Cap's story arc is about done. I don't think he has a lot of story responsibilities left.
Well, they're still gonna
my fan theory.
They're still gonna have him because I think the ultimate plan was to have Bucky take over. I thought.
In the comics, I think that happens, right? But I don't know about this whole new set of rules that they're playing by. They're kind of rewriting and combining stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, they need their characters and they need their movies, so they might. I don't know if they'll keep him in their pocket and he'll be Captain America in other movies, or if I don't really know what big story arcs he had as Captain America.
No.
Do it.
My fan.
You want to do
it? All right, go. Do it. What's your theory?
Well, let's go ahead and transition to this then, because we already talked about what we liked.
Right,
is there anything you didn't like though? Cover that first before we go into like the theories about what happens next.
Yes, I'll go because the whole love story between Vision and Wanda, like, yeah, okay.
You don't like robosexuals?
No, I don't like that whole. She's like, but if I take the stone out, I'll lose you. And I get that whole like we don't trade lives, sure, but like maybe you shoulda. Like, because you're kind of that road led to that anyway. Like, so if you're going to like micro-surgically remove the stone from him, like you should have figured that out a lot earlier. And I think honestly, if and
They say he's the most disposable because he's AI essentially.
Yes.
Well, what's life?
Yes.
We're just wet computers.
No, but even then, he justified his own actions. And Captain America was like, "No, you can't. We don't trade life." He's like, "You did. You sacrificed yourself for millions of people." And Cap just kind of shrugged it off. And I'm like, "No, this makes way more logical sense than you taking out some bomb and putting it in the ice." Like, no.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, like take that thing out and go put him on a stinking flashcard, and you can visit Vision on.
Oh man! Put him on Google Drive.
Put him in the cloud.
Straight. Put him on an iPhone. You can be Siri.
Like I liked you better when you were Jarvis anyway. But
Damn.
I don't know. See, I don't know. I like Jarvis was awesome, but Vision's pretty cool.
Yeah, but at what cost? How cool is he really?
I have an outlandish prediction of Vision. We'll get to that.
I got a couple of those too. But that's the question. You know, what is life? Is artificial intelligence not life? It's still if you are aware of yourself, you know, that's one of the other big questions of the movie. You know, when does life intelligence become life?
Wow, that's a much deeper topic than we have right now. But
I think that's deeper than any of us are qualified to answer.
Well, what were some of your other not so favorite moments? Wes, you said there were little nitpicky ones. What were some of the nitpicky ones?
And just to preface this, I love doing the nitpicky stuff, not just to make a movie seem more terrible. That's to me where you get like into the geeky stuff, like where you start like over analyzing stuff beyond what a normal person would even care to talk about. That's what I love. And I'm sure the how it should have ended is going to cover a lot of these points.
Oh, I can't wait for that, man.
But, I mean, couldn't Doctor Strange just sling-ringed his arm off? Like, done.
Boom.
Exactly.
Over. Game over. They used the sling, like, as they were fighting him, and they cut
they
other
did
enemies
that to his
up.
henchmen, too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So why don't you just go...
Yeah.
Right there.
They're tugging on the glove.
Yeah.
Iron Man, little hand laser beam, just zing! And he cauterized the wound, so he no first aid after that.
Yep.
Win-win.
Yeah.
And that it's a super, minor thing. And then there was the one about the Wanda's accent, how it miraculously just disappeared and no one talked about it. And then the Russo brothers like tried to explain it in an interview, saying like she's been trained since Civil War by Scarlett Johansson's character to be like an operative and to be like a secret agent. So she was trained to lose her accent and blah blah blah. And I'm like, then that would,
but not blend in anywhere.
And she would have kept the accent when she's talking to Vision alone in a bedroom. There's no reason she would have like had to hide an accent at that moment. She's
been practicing with Duolingo.
So there's like little nitpicky things, but I mean, those are really the only faults I can have with the movie. I thought it didn't feel like it went on too long. I personally thought it was a good mix of humor. Like, it reminded me of the older movies. I enjoyed the character interactions. I don't have a lot of bad things to say. I love the Easter egg at the end. It was great. I don't know.
I was upset with... Wait, which Easter egg? The
very end.
After credits scene?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was upset with that one. I felt that was lame.
The only thing I wish, and this might be explained in the next movie that comes out from the MCU, like why Ant-Man wasn't there. Hopefully they do explain it, but
well, they said in the beginning that
they said he's just out of just like Hawkeye, he's off the grid or whatever.
Yeah, they said because they have families, it took too much of a toll on their families, so they're staying home, which is a little weak, but.
I have to see what they do with the Ant-Man movie to see if that's justified or not.
Yeah, that looks cool too. I have my issues with Ant-Man though.
That's all I got. Next.
But
throw it to Darrel.
Darrel, how about you? Yep.
Who? Me?
Darrel.
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 What would you not like?
Darrel, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you guys.
Oh, okay. All
right. I think for me was kind of the inconsistencies of Thanos' strength throughout the movie.
That's a good point.
So the beginning of the movie, he absolutely wrecked the Hulk. I mean,
That was an awesome fight.
and then to only be almost bested by Iron Man in a one-on-one fight. I don't know. I just thought and then he didn't use the Infinity. And I know it made for great storytelling and great for the movie, but I just thought his powers were kind of inconsistent throughout the movie, and that's just me nitpicking because I understand why they did it. But again, I if he wanted to, those situations that he was put in could have been ended with just a minor slap or a punch. I mean, in the comic books, he just slapped Captain America's shield and shattered it. But yeah, so I think that was like the only thing that kind of bothered me a little bit about the movie.
Yeah, if he could have done that to the Hulk, then he would have had no struggle against Captain America and Wakanda. I mean, he was probably toying with him when he was doing the whole like resistance to the fist thing. He could have just crushed him, but
his face actually looked like he was struggling a little bit. Like he was kind of surprised. Like
yeah.
No, I think I thought about that too, and I think that was more like
surprise.
More of a surprise, like, wow, you're stronger than I thought you'd be. Blam. You know, like I didn't expect you to be that strong. That's pretty. It's kind of like observing it for a second, like, oh, holy crap, not bad, kid. Blam. Get out of here. Let the big boys talk. My only issue with the movie is I've always been a little upset with Drax's character. He's too stupid in the movies. Like, they got it really close because in the comic books it is the same thing. He doesn't get the humor, but it's more of like like in the comics he's more like dry English. You know, he'll make jokes, but they're like either really bad or really on point, and then he just kind of smirks and walks away. In the comic run I ran, in this he seems too wacky.
If Fozzie Bear were a superhero,
You kinda.
Waka
Waka
Waka.
Waka.
Yeah.
Wakanda.
That's.
There you go.
There it is. There's the title with Wakanda.
Josh, have you gone? 'Cause I haven't gone yet, too. I don't.
Yeah, I kind of went.
Complaints.
Yeah.
So I don't have any real complaints about the movie, but I do have a couple items that I've heard other people complain about that I think would be kind of interesting. There are a lot of people that talked about the characters being mistreated and not really being respected within the movie itself. And I think part of that was like an issue of time. Some of the examples that were brought up were Gamora's death didn't feel possibly as emotional as it should have. You know, the death of Loki. Some people were complaining that with what happened with the Hulk after getting beat by Thanos was inconsistent with the character. And I kind of support the choices made because of the storytelling of what this is in Infinity War and the way time had to be divided. But those were a lot of other people's complaints. And then things like the stones not being fully complained and not seeing how Thanos got the Power Stone from Xandar. Mm-hmm. Like completely glossing over how that actually happened. And then what's the current state of that planet.
There's half of it left.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, before
Beyond
the snapping of the fingers, though.
Okay, so there's a quarter of the planet left.
So, to answer, not to answer, but my take on Gamora's death, like, I really liked that scene because I felt that everybody who was watching that movie had a, like, oh, girl, like, you don't know, like, no, that he's talking about you. Like, everybody had that. While she was like, you only love yourself, you big dumb. And she thought that she was winning over on something. And it was kind of nice to have everybody in that movie theater, I feel like, share in that same sentiment. Like, oh, no.
Every parent,
that's
parent knew ahead of time.
Yeah. I
So,
also
and with her death, though, when he snaps his fingers, and he's in the orange-hued kind of world walking on the water, and he sees little Gamora. That was confirmed that she's inside the Soul Stone.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So
she's
you don't
still
see
alive.
anybody else, but there's theories that everybody else who is, whisked away is also inside the Soul Stone.
But she didn't get whisked away, though, did she? She fell.
She didn't. She was
she
one
was-
for one.
She was the sacrifice for the Soul Stone, so
Right?
I don't know how the body works with that, but
Her soul's
she-
in it.
yeah.
Her soul was always a little kid.
No, that's her representation, I guess.
Mm.
I like how Red Skull was there though.
Yeah.
That
I
was
thought you
cool.
might
'Cause
like
I was
that.
like, that was my theory. I was like, he's somewhere. That didn't kill him. He's somewhere in the universe.
But they could have got the real actor to come back for a cameo. I'm just saying. That was,
I think
that was
the
a
guy
little
did
weak.
it. I
They
think
tried,
well,
but
no, the Hugo Weaving has said on camera, he's like, I hated that role. The makeup was just a nightmare. So he wanted no part of that. And I think the new guy did pretty good because I had to look up the IMDb. I was like, was that
Right.
Hugo Weaving?
Right. A nitpick. I'm sure
Yeah.
they tried.
How is he floating though?
How do you get this clothes too? He got warped
he
over
was-
there in his
Yeah.
Nazi uniform. There's no dressing room on that planet.
Is
Right?
He had to go to
Soul Stone
Azkaban
and-
and-
we're really going to complain about that.
It's not complaining. It's
these guys
nitpicking.
moving
It's
through
geeky
space and-
nitpicking. This
it's
is what we're
geeky
here for.
nitpicking, and it's the question of how did that happen?
You don't need to role play my wife in this part, Sean. Okay, I want to have a geek out moment. She's here to tell me no one cares about that. Shut up. All right.
All right, so should we transition to the real fun part of this and where we kind of come up with what we think is actually going on and what's going to happen next?
Series.
Yes.
Do it.
That's
Can I do mine?
go for
Keep
it.
you waiting.
All right. So Bob came up with a theory that all the other people are trapped inside the Soul Stone as well. And so he's saying that the living heroes are going to have to one for one, like completely 180 from the we don't trade lives, is that they would have to trade their life for someone inside there. So he was like, I see Tony trading his life for Spider-Man and whatever others in there too. So I thought that would be kind of crazy because again, you're Disney and you're not going to kill off everybody, but you could kill off one, and you could kill off the guy who has already sacrificed himself for the greater good, and that, like Mark, you were talking about, it was Captain America. So I think if there's a way that Captain America, if everybody is trapped inside the Soul Stone, could sacrifice himself and put him in the Soul Stone, and so that everybody else can go out. So that Captain America can be done. He can be restored to like the savior, not some war criminal like he was referred to in Spider-Man. And I don't know. That's all I came up with.
I'll modify that because I read the comic, and I in the comics, and this goes on what Doctor Strange said. Doctor Strange said, we're in the end game. It had to be this way, and then he faded away. Doctor Strange knows what's going to happen. He said there was one way for them to win. So he's going step by step to win this. So I think like everyone who's still alive is still alive for a reason. So in the comic books, what happens is Thanos becomes a god, but his body's still there. So then Nebula steals the gauntlet and reverses all the deaths he did. But I will say that Josh puts a good point that the Soul Stone needs someone. If it's not in its place, it needs a soul. So yeah, that Captain America could sacrifice himself for Gamora. I think that's possible.
And I think on the flip side from Thanos was like, I'm the only one who is strong enough and has a strong enough will to do what needs to be done. I would say that Captain America would be the only one strong enough to do that part of it.
Yeah.
So the people that are alive, that are left alive, are Thor, Rocket, Natasha, Captain America, let's say
Tony.
Banner, Tony, Nebula, and who's Rhoda?
Rhodey.
Rhodey.
Oh, stupid autocorrect. So those are the ones that we know are still alive. So for the fourth one, so it's Bucky. Man, there's so many
most
people.
Most of those are the contract enders too. Yeah.
Well, is Robert Downey Jr.'s contract up?
I think so.
Because
I think he's done.
Tired of this.
I thought they
Is he
extended
though?
him for Homecoming and these two.
He's a giant child. This is like the best playtime you could ever have.
He's also 50, and he's starting to kind of show his age a little bit.
My house, sorry.
Oh, that's what stunt doubles are for.
Do you have any?
All right, other fan theories.
Yeah.
Darrel, what you got?
I don't know. I think the biggest one again is Cap. And I think Doctor Strange is going to have a bigger part to play in this than what we think.
Okay.
I don't think it was by chance that they dropped a line in the movie about him having a spell on the Time Stone. I think that was something that was kind of just glossed over. I think that has a lot to do with what's going to play out in Part 4 and part of his plan. Because he blatantly told Tony and Spider-Man that
he would let them die.
He's willing to let them die before he gives up the Time Stone. And then after he saw that one
out of 14 million,
that one outcome,
Yep.
He willingly gave it up. So I think the Time Stone has something to do with how this whole thing ends.
Well, just like what happened with Vision, though. You know, because after Vision's dead, he said, "Oh, there's no time. There's no time at all," and he just rewound time, and Vision was fine and perfect again until he killed him again. So yeah, they could pull that and just rewind time before he snapped his fingers, and then Thor smacks him in the head with an axe. Who do you think is actually dead? Now that we've gotten to the end of the movie.
I honestly don't think Loki's dead. I think they're going to bring him back. And the reason why I say that is because if you look at how many times Loki has played tricks, right? I think this was the dumbest move he made, right? So he walked up on Thanos with a knife. And he went out. So to me, it was they can redeem him as he played so many tricks. And this is just maybe just one of them that he's done, because to me, like somebody had pointed out in a theory video that I watched, and I didn't notice it until like the third time I watched it. It was the dumbest move on his part, and maybe he did that and played the trick so that he gave Thor a chance to live in, and I don't know, but I think he's coming back. I think they're gonna bring him back because he's liked by a lot of fans.
Yeah,
that's a good point though, because I think he could have done a lot more strategic, like, good if he was their tour guide on Earth, like he was claiming to be. So for him to turn around like, "Oh, I'm gonna stab him," instead of playing that shiesty long game like he normally does, it's kind of cheap. But then his death propelled Thor's like
motivation,
rage, and his motivation forward. So it's kind of a weird balance.
Well, I think that's probably Darrel's point though too. Is
and maybe he did that. Yeah, like maybe he did that because he knew.
Yeah, good point.
He knows Thor loves him. And I did like the line at the very end though when he's like, son of Odin. And he looks at Thor like he's like, "Yeah, I get it now, and I'm sorry."
And he also said that the sun was going to on the both of them once again at some point again.
Yeah. I think Vision comes back just to play on the, like, he doesn't come back as the same thing. So it's a play on the heartstrings for Wanda and his love interest. So he either doesn't know who she is or doesn't care anymore. But I think what was Black Panther's sister's name? Shuri. I think she rebuilds him. I think she repairs him and gets him back online.
All right, so I think that's a good transition for my two theories, although mine are really outlandish and probably don't really have any relevance or legitimacy.
Those are the most fun.
Well, the first one I'll say is actually in reference to Vision. And I was watching something like, how interesting would it be if Vision turns into Adam Warlock? Does Adam Warlock also have the stone in his head? Pictures that I've seen, he has a yellow stone in his head.
He does, yes.
And I know that he regenerates. That's what the cocoon is. And wondering if like that'd be the next evolution of being from Vision.
They hinted about that in Guardians too, though, right?
Yeah, that was the
chamber.
scene at the end.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
And I know that's what kind of throws off my theory, but it seems like there's some similarities among the characters, and I don't know, who knows. The second one, and I don't know if there's any basis for this at all, because like I said, I only saw it the one time. If the moment that Thanos snaps his fingers, because supposedly there's no, it's the most humane way of deciding who lives and dies in the universe, right? Because it's supposed to be like kind of like a random occurrence thing. It isn't somebody going off and committing mass genocide, and that was one of the things that people used to kind of legitimize Thanos is he doesn't want to do this mass killing. He'd rather just do it this way and be done with it. We never see how Thanos gets to where he is in that very last scene where he sees the sun rising or whatever it is. What if he, by snapping his fingers, also made himself disappear?
That was something that I wondered about, because he had the line earlier on that said, rich or poor, it doesn't matter who you are. It's a 50-50 chance. It's fair to everybody.
There was nothing indicating saying that he would be saved.
Well, he does stand there, like with his arm all jacked up in front of Captain America. He's like, "What did you do?" But there were people that were kind of fading away after they cut from that scene. So
some people took longer than others.
Yeah, that he faded away after that shot.
So now he's the Soul Stone with everybody else he just supposedly killed.
Yeah, that was actually the opening, or one of the opening comic scenes in the book. Was he was like crap's going down, and some of the heroes are like, we need Thanos, so they go try and find him, and he's on a farm, and his armor is all up on like a scarecrow, and he's like, I'm just farming now, things are good.
I mean, what better way than to have this entire plan backfire on him, even though it seemed like he was successful. But because he's there with everybody else, they're going to probably have to rescue him out of the Soul Stone, just like they get everybody else.
They're the ones adventuring this time, stuck in there trying to get out. Why? Yeah, that's interesting.
That's pretty good. Didn't one of the guys in the Dark Army tell all these, like, you tonight you will be in paradise because you were gracious enough to be sacrificed.
Can I say how happy I was when he died?
Ebony Maw?
Oh, I hate televangelists. That's all that dude was. He was a televangelist.
I don't really have anything new to add that you guys haven't said, but I mentioned something no one else has mentioned as far as what I think is going to happen next. I think Hawkeye is going to be pissed because all his family is dead. They're off in Myrtle Beach, hanging out, doing their family thing. And he's like, I'm not calling in. I see my phone ringing. I'm not answering it. I'm here with you guys. All right.
We all know what's going to happen with Hawkeye.
He's going to come back and wreck people.
But we also know who he's coming back as.
Well, yeah, but so did they film 4 already, or did they just film parts of 4?
Yeah, they filmed them concurrently.
They filmed it.
Okay, because I was going to say, like,
into.
Yeah, and I'm kind of excited for that.
He's finally going to have something cool to do, or, have a... He's trading his bow and arrow for a sword.
Now, see, I was a little like the whole comic versus movie thing, because Adam Warlock was a major role in all 3 of these movies. He was actually one of the main causes for them. I would have liked to see the Magus in movie form. That would have been cool. Okay, so real quick. Adam Warlock is a pure being, like they hinted at the end of Guardians 2. But the reason he's a pure being is because he used, I think it was a Tesseract, to expel all good and evil from him. So he was neutral. But the problem was, the evil part was the Magus, and it was a purple version, and that's what the comic Infinity War, he was the bad guy in that. And then the third part, Infinity Crusade, was the pure good side of him, which was kind of messed up and bad too. So, but it's an interesting concept,
Mm-hmm.
Should we talk about the very last scene of the movie now? With
lost Darrel.
Yeah, my Skype's acting up right now. You guys are all frozen to me.
I can hear you though.
I can hear and see all of you move.
I'm moving?
Yep.
You're
You're
moving.
moving fine.
It's weird.
Should we try inviting Darrel back in?
I think so.
There's a crazy thunderstorm whipping through town right now too.
Yeah, I'm gonna restart Skype because I can't see you guys at all.
All right. Once we hit this last point, we should probably start wrapping up and not tempt fate here, especially with episode 99. We're right on the edge of pulling this damn thing off.
All right, I'll call back.
All right.
Did you see that all the actors in the movie were giving each other the A tattoo?
Yes.
One moment, I am rebooting Skype for those watching at home. Interesting. Wow. Really bad.
Why? Mine's just...
I hear Wes.
I don't see anybody, and it's... I don't even... It looks like it's not even dialed you guys yet on my end.
That's you want to just try audio for right now, so we get at least finish up.
Sure, let's do it.
Okay. Are you gonna be able to start the OBS recording?
I never stopped it. It looks like it's still working. We just have something wacky on the screen, so that's it.
All right. So we'll try to run through this then. All right. So the very last scene, the end credit scene. I was hoping for multiple, but there's only this one. What do you guys think about it?
I wanted more because we knew that was coming.
I thought it was awesome.
Is it? I'm not interested in her character at all. And I don't know why. I admittedly don't know a whole lot, but from what I've read, I don't think we need a female Superman in the universe. I think it seems weird to me.
I'm curious because Marvel has a really good track record for translating characters. I'm not a huge fan of her in the comics, but I am very interested in what they do and whether I'll like it or not.
Darrel, looked like you were going to say something too.
I'm actually, since they announced the movie, I've been pretty excited to see what they're going to do with her. I think this kind of solidified that for me. I honestly believe they're putting her in a position going back to America. I think if they do decide not to pass that mantle to Bucky, I think her character and what she represents, I think she's going to be in that position to kind of take over his position. I think they're kind of setting her up for that.
That's interesting.
And I think definitely Marvel had to come out with a strong female force as well. Like that's the one thing that the DC world has done, I think, a little better than the Marvel universe has done, is they have had Wonder Woman's character, her story arc, her movies easily stand alone. To where in Marvel's universe, like Natasha she started out as a personal assistant, and then she was a cool personal assistant. She was awesome, and now like they let her stab people, and then the warriors on Wakanda are all women, and they
Right.
have been stronger, but they're always supporting roles. They're strong, amazing supporting roles, but they're not a leading cast member.
And like all the posters for the other Avengers movies, they always had the male characters facing forwards, but all the female characters, Natasha specifically, she was facing away with her butt facing the camera, kind of looking over her shoulder, always having that kind of view that is a little sexist in retrospect.
But yeah, I'm just like Sean. I don't know a whole lot about Captain Marvel. I thought it was a dude. I'm like,
It was at one point.
Shazam was actually Captain Marvel, wasn't he? I thought Shazam actually went by that name.
He was.
Similar, was it the same? No, yeah,
Shazam, yeah.
actually.
And that's why they changed Captain Marvel, who was Captain Marvel before they passed it over to Carol Danvers. They were pronouncing it Captain Marvel.
Marvel, that's right.
Because they had that, him at DC, and then had that whole back and forth about the rights of that name.
So I'm interested to see what happens, but I like strong female characters. I don't know. I like to see it's a superhero. Like, you have a power, and that power seems to be just as indiscriminate as anything else.
And I think I should clarify really quick. I don't have a problem that this person is female. It's just that I think that, and we haven't seen anything yet, but from the descriptions I've read, it almost seems to be almost like an infallible character, almost like Superman.
Mm-hmm.
And I find those characters a little bit less interesting at times. But, and I forgot who said it, but Marvel already has a pretty good track record of translating this stuff, so I'm just going to have to, I guess, bite my tongue and reserve judgment until we actually see what's up.
Well, I don't get how all of the pictures have her suit as like dark blue and red, and then the live pictures you see, it's just like green and.
That's her. That's the second suit. Yeah.
No, they're saying. I thought that was her first suit.
I'm saying the blue one. I'm saying the other colors are her second suit. Yeah, that's the Kree one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the green one is her original Kree suit, and then
Yep.
she gets the blue gold.
Classic. Yeah.
Red. Yeah.
Okay.
See, I'm curious about two things. One, how is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. gonna handle?
I've been keeping up with it. Yep.
And two, as far as I knew, according to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I thought the Kree hated humans. So how is one working with them?
Because like the Captain Marvel movie is going to be taking place in the 80s. So something might have happened after that point to change the perception.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that I'm super excited for as far as Captain Marvel is that they're introducing the Skrulls.
Yes.
And haven't seen that depicted yet. So I think that's going to be like one of the main interesting points of this movie. And apparently it's supposed to be taking place in the midst of the Skrull and Kree War.
The Marvel movie, Captain Marvel, takes place in the 90s, just to clarify, Sean. Not that it makes a big difference.
I thought it was 80s, but okay, 90s. But either way, it takes place a little bit further back
Yeah.
than all the Avengers first happened.
It's
so
cool.
Do you think Avengers 5 will be this? What was that called?
War.
Was it Secret War?
Secret War, Secret Invasion, or something like that.
No, Secret Invasion.
Yeah.
So do you
It might
think
be.
Avengers 5 or Avengers 6.
I don't know. It depends on how Captain Marvel ends and where we pick up after Avengers 4. I think that would be a good title for one, or a good storyline for one.
Because that was one of the more epic Avengers stories. You know, everyone you know could be the bad guy.
But I don't know. I think the element of that story will surprise. But if they're going into this movie and revealing that there's Skrulls, and that so now the audience knows that there's a possibility that there are Skrulls, I think we kind of lose that element of surprise that would have kind of made the movie per se.
But you can always go in and say, okay, Tony Stark the entire time was a Skrull from the first movie. You know, that's also dangerous because it also kind of feels like just a different setting for Not Civil, Captain America 2. You know, oh, your best friend's Hydra. Oh, now your best friend's an alien.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Did you guys ever watch Battlestar Galactica?
yes.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yep.
There's a huge
Cylon.
portion of that was okay. Who's a Cylon? And I think
Yeah.
it just the building of the suspense of that is all that you can really play off of. You know, because once it's revealed, it's revealed. I don't know if they're gonna do that or not, but we'll have to wait a couple of years to see.
But see, we now have X-Men confirmed because of this movie.
Wait, what?
I'm jumping a little bit, but you have the Crimson Bands of Sidorak. Sidorak is the alien or the demon? Something mystical being that gives Juggernaut his power. Juggernaut's the main bad guy of the X-Men, or one of the main bad guys of the X-Men. X-Men confirmed.
Wow, that was really
I can go there.
You got a special medal for that one.
Yes, it's an Xbox achievement. But that's what a lot of people are saying, is that these movies are a way for the Marvel movies to reabsorb all the properties they had lost over the years. So they're gonna try and bring in X-Men. They're gonna try and bring in Fantastic Four, and Sony's already announced that Dark Phoenix will be the last X-Men movie they make.
Well, before we wrap it up, any last comments about the movie, other than our recommendation to go and see it if you have not seen it yet?
Go
Although
see
if
it
you're
again.
listening to this, you should have already seen it.
Go
When
see it again and
Spider-Man-
again and again, and let's see how many records this movie can break.
Yeah, I got teary-eyed when Spider-Man started to dissolve and
Yeah, that was heartbreaking.
and
I'm
hurt.
not sad that they faded away and died, because I know 4's coming, but yeah, that was a pretty
Yeah, that cut me deep.
heartbreaking scene.
What's funny is that didn't affect me. The one when Stark got stabbed, I got teary-eyed there.
Ooh, that was good.
Mhm.
See, but that was a thing that never mind. I did not like that. He got stabbed in the liver. His blood would have been black, and he'd been dead in half an hour. But he's like sprayed some icy hot on himself, and he's okay now.
It's probably just all whiskey that sprayed out anyways.
He's got the nanites, so they all just went inside and
It's
fixed
true. True.
Nothing that a Marvel contract won't fix.
it. Exactly. But yeah, you know what? I remember reading something. I think you guys might be right about Stark dying in Avengers 4, because Sherlock 3 just got greenlit.
Yeah, I saw that.
He's got to make room in his schedule. All right, so we would love to hear from all of you. Please go ahead and visit our website, makinggeeks.com. Check out the contact page. Drop us a line, question, suggestion for the show, anything that you like. And go ahead and peruse the homepage with all of our past episodes you can listen to right there on the site. Check out all of our past guests. And then also listen to our previous episode that we had Darrel on the show too. That was a really good show. And go ahead and check that out at makinggeeks.com.
And you can find us across all the social medias, on Instagram at Making Geeks Podcast, on Twitter and Facebook at Making Geeks, and you can find our guest on Instagram at The Broken Nerd 83.
And we'd like to give our awesome patrons over at patreon.com/makinggeeks a huge thank you for their support and continued love for our show. We appreciate your contributions, and if you'd like to help keep us on the air and keep providing opportunities such as Maker Faire next week for us, we would love to have you on board as a patron. So head over to patreon.com/makinggeeks. Thanks a lot.
And if you want to find out anything more about us individually, you can find Sean's work at geekbuilders.net. Mark is at asylum-3d.com. Wes is at geeksmithing.com. My work is at thepiworkshop.com. And Darrel, why don't you do a quick, little elevator pitch of what you've been working on, man? I know you've been doing amazing stuff. So what can people go and find from you?
So I'm actually on a couple platforms, so they can see the tested incognito walk that they would Adam on tested.com or on Tested's YouTube platform. I also have a couple of videos on Make's platform, and of course they can find all of my work on YouTube, The Broken Nerd. And then if you I always tell people if they want to keep up to date with kind of the things that I'm working on at the moment, the best place to follow that is on Twitter at TheBrokeNerd83.
What you working on right now?
Oh, Stormbreaker, Thor's Hammer.
I'm really waiting on that one. That model looked really good.
I'm actually reprinting it right now because I didn't like the way the first print came out, and then also the handle snapped as I was swinging it around, which I'm kind of embarrassed to admit, and it just snapped.
Stormbreaker broke.
So yeah, I'm working on that and working on some kind of like custom projects that kind of keeping on the wraps until I release that.
Nice.
Okay.
Is your Stormbreaker actually full size, or is it scaled down a little bit?
Uncle Jesse and I were talking about that today. I think mine's is so. I looked at a couple screenshots. There seems to be some kind of inconsistency in the sizing. So when the hammer actually strikes Thanos, it's huge, and there's actually somebody actually screenshot that picture. So it's like the hammer head alone is like the size of Thor's torso. But then when you see it in other shots, it looks to scale of what I have right now. So I'm not sure.
I did notice that in the movie.
Yeah. So I'm not sure what the proper scale is, but mine is more consistent with like the Hot Toys scale in comparison to comparison to Thor. Yeah. So.
Nice.
Right on. Well, I'll be looking for that. Well, thank you everybody for hanging out with us. We finally get to geek out about Infinity War.
Yay!
Darrel, thank you so much, man, for coming on.
I thank you guys for having me back.
Absolutely.
Let's go watch it again. And live tweet it. We'll go watch it next week in California.
That's right. Let's talk about that real quick.
Yeah, we got to pitch that.
Yeah,
So
and I
we're
just got
going
the
to be
butterflies in my stomach.
Oh, you're fine. So this episode's coming out on Saturday. So a week from today, it's the 17th, right? 17th or 19th?
17th, 18th, 19th, 20th.
Yes.
What day is Saturday? I got it.
18th, I think.
Okay. So the 18th at 11 a.m. on the Content Creator stage at the Bay Area Maker Faire, we four will be giving our 100th podcast episode live to anybody in attendance. We are all super stoked. We're going to be
I'm a
talking.
little nervous.
Yeah, but that's good.
Yeah, it is.
It's a good nervous. I'm excited nervous.
Yeah, we'll be talking about the transition from like what you would imagine as like your dad's workshop or your grandfather's workshop to like what we as a bunch of making geeks have as our workshops now. Automation, robots. So how that whole transition has happened, and how it's going to affect the next generation of geeks that we are all upbringing. So come on out, come hang out with us. It's going to be a super fun live time. Besides going out and seeing Amazing Maker Faire, come out and hang out with us.
Yes, please get a sticker. We got stickers.
I think they should come up to us and tell us one of our phrases or hashtags to show that they were actually loyal followers of the show.
We'll channel
Whether it's
our,
Squirrel
channel
Ninjas or
yeah. Anyone says it, we channel our inner Lutz and just give them a big, huge bear hug.
That'll be your job. You're on hug detail.
Okay.
Yep.
Sweet. See you guys in less than a week.
Oh God.
Yeah. So we will be traveling and a lot of nervous poops, I imagine, but we hope you have a fantastic week.
See you guys.
Later, everybody.
go watch the Maker Faire feed and see if we pop up on it. We should. All right, we're out.
Sweet. Thanks, Darrel.
Thank you.
Good having you, man.
With the content you're doing for Make, I'm sure that you're going to have some invites to Make